Yes, 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 yes. Welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
It's your hosts, Joe and Sam, and I've been waiting all week to not screw that up. Like last week when I forgot to laugh at the intro song. Today it's episode 40, and to celebrate episode 40, we are celebrating 40 years of The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
From a certain point of view for The Empire is right around the corner. And as of today's recording,
a release date on that?
November 10th, I want to say.
Okay.
Look that up, Jamie. As of today, this actual day that we're recording, it's a week until Mandalorian Season 2 airs. And so obviously next week's episode is going to be scrambling to watch the episode and then record an episode reactionary.
As of the day that we're recording, today, Borat, the subsequent movie, was released. So that's out there.
Nice.
Very nice.
I like how much.
Oh my god.
It's for free if you have Amazon Video, by the way, so... Anyway.
But today we're talking about Empire Strikes Back. I'm distracted because I'm looking up when a certain point of view Empire Strikes Back comes out. I want to say it's November 10th. Let's see.
I want to say that you're right, so let me. By being right.
Doesn't say...
It's okay. Anyway, so what else we got going on?
There is a smidge of news. Of course, I wanted to share with the fans. I'm an adult, and
throw these away, Mom. I dare you to try.
I got a kid. I got 2 kids. I'm married. I've got a mortgage. Therefore, if I want to have some freaking Darth Maul cards in my house, that's what I'm going to do. So I went overboard and bought 120 of them.
Save this box flap.
What's it say? Young Jedi points? Okay, cool.
I don't even know what that... Really
I'm sure you get like free cards and stuff.
www.starwars.com.
That still holds up.
Yeah, that probably doesn't exist anymore.
By now, Y2K has destroyed planet Earth. Very cool stuff. It's pretty much 10 cards repeated over and over again. But we get a cool Jawa. We get Obi-Wan. Darth Maul's in here at least once. Ding, 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 ding. There he is. Sith Lord. At last we'll reveal ourselves to the Jedi. 6 damage.
That's it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how the game works, to be honest.
3 power?
3 power.
Dang. Darth Maul got this shaft.
Well, they knew about as much of how important he was when they made this game as they did when they made the movie and killed him immediately.
He still killed a Jedi Master. I would like to mention that.
Yep. First person to kill a Jedi Master in 1,000 years. For Sith, that is.
Actually, old age killed Yoda in Return of the Jedi, so...
What? That's later in the story. Samuel made a good point, though. He said, does it smell like 1999? And if you don't know this, you're about to be educated. Your sense of smell actually has the strongest memory recall. And actually, it does smell like 1999. It just smells like what I remember these cards smelling like when I was a kid. Of course, when you're a kid, you smell everything, even your own poop.
Is it November 10th?
It is.
It's November 10th.
Yes. There you go. November 10th, from a certain point of view for Empire Strikes Back, comes out. If you're an audiobook kind of person and you're trying to start a Star Wars audiobook and you're not sure which one, this is a great one to start on. If you're a reader and you're not sure what Star Wars book to start on, this is a great chance to jump in. They're going to have 40 short stories from 40 different authors, and because of that, you get kind of a feel for an author you may like a little bit more than the others.
For instance, Wow, I just brain farted after I was going to say something I thought was going to be good to say. Who's the chick that wrote Master and Apprentice?
Claudia Gray.
Claudia Gray. Sorry, Claudia, if you're listening. I know what your name is.
In the name of the short story from a certain point of view is called Master and Apprentice.
So she wrote something about the relationship that you'll see in...
the Kenobi series, hopefully.
Well, that and in Master and Apprentice, the greater novel.
Right.
Not just the short story, but it's kind of like a foretaste of what we were going to get.
And if you're into wacky things, Daniel Jose Older is the one that wrote the guy that gets excited and leaves the Stormtrooper Corps to ride dewbacks. And he also wrote the book Last Shot, which is a Lando and Han novel, which is really good. So it's a very cool, you get to dip your toes into different Star Wars authors. For instance, John Jackson Miller, who wrote the Kenobi novelization and also A New Dawn, which is a prequel to Star Wars Rebels, is going to write something for this one, so he's very good. And speaking of Kenobi, Ewan McGregor said recently in an interview that he was already testing his clothing and all that kind of stuff and different camera angles. So when Deborah Chow was shooting for The Mandalorian, she's the one that did episode 3 and episode 6 or 7, one of the two, 6. So she's going to be the director for the Kenobi series. So Ewan was actually on set of The Mandalorian in his Obi-Wan costume doing lighting tests and stuff.
I would be so motivated to do a good job if I were on that show.
Yeah. So it's really cool concept that he's already been there. And so I'm sure if they do a similar Disney Gallery type thing for Kenobi, I'm sure we'll see that. And so Kenobi is closer than we think. Next year it's supposed to come out. So
he's here.
He's me.
Of course I know.
He's inside all of us. And then this is another announcement that these guys have no clue about. Something for the fans at home. Y'all ready for this? This is the real surprise. Although those decks of cards were exciting. As of right now, if you go to the website tpublic, TEEPUBLIC.com, and you search for Chiss Podcast, there is a ton of merch available. If you want to buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mask, things like that, that's all available. Pens, stickers, laptop covers, book totes, it's all there. And so these guys had no clue. I've been working on this project for a couple of weeks, and I was stressed to the max, waiting for that package to get to my house today before we recorded. But I did buy you guys a couple of shirts. So this is one of the ones that's available. Sombrero of the Orient.
Nice.
And
I want to buy more famous catchphrases.
This is for Samuel, and I gave it to you in the white Napoleon Dynamite colors.
Oh, thank you. I do love the red, white, and blue.
And then this one...
Wow, nobody is going to know what this means.
That's okay. This one is the Chimera, and this is a back print t-shirt. So we have front and back prints for almost everything. This is for my wife. She wanted just a back print, nothing on the front. So that's very exciting. This is for myself.
I told Josiah to make that joke during his wedding vows, and he would not. I take you to be my wife.
The Chiss Ascendancy podcast and the hollow lettering that you see every week, and with the Grand Admiral's insignia
very cool.
in the right place. Nice. And then...
How embarrassing would that have been if it was actually Grand Moff?
I know the difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And then this one's for you, Adam. Same layout as the hoodie, except for it's in a black t-shirt.
I thought it was a cutoff tee for a second.
That'd have been awesome. I don't want
He'll wear it to football practice.
Chiss Ascendancy podcast with the Grand Admiral's signature right there on the tee. And then for myself, the same with the... I prefer the full lettering.
Ah, yes, the Toy Story lettering.
The Toy Story style.
Nice.
So... as of right now, you can go to tpublic.com.
Everybody got one that says the podcast name, and mine has one that's going to make me sound like a racist. Out of context, this looks very racist. But know that I am not.
There you go. Just like the debates. If I say it, it's true. No fact check available. That's all available.
In honor of the debates, I'm going to mute that side of the microphone while I'm talking so that Josiah can't interrupt me.
Wrong. That's so wrong. But any item you see on here, so for instance, this one has the Chiss in just the red. You can get that on a pin. You can get that on a mask. You can get that on a sticker. You can get a laptop cover. And you can get this style. You can get some that have this on the front, and then on the back has the Chimera.
This is very Spaceballs. The merchandising.
The
Spaceballs, the
merchandise.
lunchbox.
Yeah, but I've been working my butt off. You guys are welcome. Get your t-shirts. This in, Baltos just won the race. I was stalling. Did it work? Samuel's got his shirt on.
I had to have Josiah hold down the button. I can't take my finger off the button or else the theme song stops.
Yeah, but they're made by, they're made to order. So you can order as few or as many as you want with no extra charge. And so if you're a friend of mine, don't ask me if you can just pay me directly and skip shipping, because it's not how it works. I've actually gotten a couple of people to buy shirts ahead of time, and then when this comes out, they'll be able to post
Very cool.
their shirts. The logo that's on the podcast, if you look it up on Apple, the one that Zach Calderon made for us, that's on a t-shirt. There's a lot of crap, dude. There's like 15 designs. I've been working my butt off. Skeleton Astronaut's been helping me, so shout out to Brandon up in Oklahoma. Thank you so much, bro.
What part of Oklahoma?
I don't remember. Oklahoma City, basically.
Oh, okay.
He's about 45 minutes from Tulsa.
Cool.
So
not Oklahoma City then.
right, when I send him a package, they're like, Oklahoma City? And I'm like, because whatever his zip is right there. Gotcha. It's right next to it.
I'll have to be on the north side then.
Yep, something. But he's been helping, and so, yeah, we sent these over in high-quality PNGs, and the shirts turned out fantastic.
Very cool.
So we're talking about The Empire Strikes Back today, and many people, this is their favorite. Many people, this is the greatest Star Wars content to ever happen.
Nobody's got any complaints about Empire.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Which is funny because when Empire came out, before Return of the Jedi, it got a lot of hate.
You know what's funny is, have you... is it X-Men Apocalypse when Nightcrawler first comes to the X-Men? Anyway, they go to see...
No clue.
They go to see Empire in theaters.
Oh, really?
And Jean Grey's like, no, I think this one's better than the first one. And she was like basically saying everything that wouldn't be thought about Empire for all the years. And I was like, fake news.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting because when Empire came out, man, talk about the cliffhanger of cliffhangers.
Right?
If you haven't seen Empire Strikes Back... I don't know why you're listening to this.
Yeah, get out of here. Get out.
I almost gave a spoiler warning, but like, bro, it's been out literally 40 years. I can get your sticker right here.
I looked for one.
Yeah, Empire Strikes Back, the greatest Star Wars of all time for many folks. And imagine the cliffhanger when you leave the theater and you're like, hang on, so Vader is Luke's dad, or he's lying, and is Han Solo dead, and why the crap is Lando wearing Han's outfit? What the heck is going on?
Also, I would like to talk about, since we're going to talk about the end of the movie before we talk about the beginning of the movie, how Luke mispronounces Tatooine at the end of the movie.
See you guys on...
Tatooine. Just I never watched that, I don't know, like 2 years ago, and I was like, catch you guys on my home planet of mispronunciation.
Yeah. It's funny because...
You can tell he's thinking about it before he says it.
Empire was very, very stressful for George. He directed A New Hope. He did not direct Empire Strikes Back. And so the budget and everything was just way over. And so they say that it... was it the beginning of... I think it was either towards the beginning of Empire or towards the beginning of Return of the Jedi. George Lucas actually had a heart attack. And the budget was crazy. The filming was behind. So I'm sure when Mark Hamill was like, see you on the planet of Tatooine, George was like, it's good, cut. Send it in.
Oh, sweet Jesus. All right, we'll make it work.
Exactly. So very cool stuff. Right from the beginning, it's just gold. When I was a kid, the number one toy in the history of the world was the Power of the Force AT-AT Walker. I would like to address the pronunciation of that vehicle because I feel like there are...
The guy that just took down an AT-AT, that's who I am.
Yeah, there's...
Fallen Order.
There's like 600 different designations, with different gunships and... walkers and rollers and crawlers and everything, It's basically just a bunch of babies. But
this one hops.
I feel like the only one that they pronounce that way is the AT-AT.
Yeah, I think it's because it's the only one that's like a word.
Makes sense, yeah.
AT-AT.
So people say AT-AT.
So inconsistent with everything else.
Yeah, I've never... Do you call the chicken walker an AT?
An AT Street?
AT Street? I don't know. Yeah. Stuff like that. So
like saying wasps.
It's a fugazi. It's a fairy dust. Dude, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, and he looks worse for wear. Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to look good when they got that camera zoomed up on you and you got the glow with the booger between your fingers.
Have you seen the
Jim Carrey?
No. The Between Two Ferns episode with Matthew McConaughey. And Zach Galifianakis was like, Matthew, I see that you have a shirt on. Is everything okay?
That is really funny. I remember there was this guy when I was in high school that had graduated a couple years before me, but he kept coming around. And we started making fun of him because he reminded us of that line from Matthew McConaughey where he's like, the thing about high school girls is I get older and they just stay the same age. And I was like, yep, that's so-and-so. I'm trying not to name drop because I've been doing it the last couple of weeks.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. You're probably not watching the podcast. You're not cool enough. Anyways, Empire Strikes Back. You start off here on the planet of Hoth, which is funny because it's so cold. Good job.
I knew where that was going, bro.
That'd be funny if Mustafar was called Cold Stafar. George is like, it ends where it began.
Is he freaking just like one of the Vikings? He's like, we'll name this one Iceland because it's so temperate. They'll never want to come here. It'll be all for us.
Dude, if you turn these boxes at a 90-degree angle, it makes a picture. Look.
What do you know? Anyway, back to what I was saying.
They knew what they were doing in 1999. We've really screwed up since then.
I don't know. I'm still not disappointed with the specialty version of the latest Thrawn book.
What do you mean?
The first edition, it's just got so many thoughtful additions, you know, as far as like the different framing and the blue edge paper.
Oh yeah, for
They're
sure.
still making good stuff.
So you start on Hoth, and you made a good point because we actually watched a portion of the movie today to refresh ourselves. Refresh yourselves. But it's funny because, yeah, as a kid growing up, I was like, now they've got to go to their other house, you know?
Yeah.
But this is the one.
Yeah, I don't know. I just always assumed, because I had seen, you know, other movies where if there's a group of people, you know, they've got more than one headquarters, you know, unless it's the Super Kid Academy and they've only got the one, and then you got to close the door, and then Carmen followed them in because they didn't close the door in time. Anyway.
Oh my God, that is the most niche reference we've ever made in our entire lives.
Sorry, couldn't resist. Anyway, but that's the one. You know what I mean? And just I was saying, you know, I always kind of thought just because they destroyed that one AT-AT that they kind of won, but you watched it as an adult, you're like, man, these guys just got destroyed.
Yeah, well...
Now they got to find a whole new home.
Yeah, the reason that I knew that they had lost is
they're
because...
They're space homeless for like the rest of the movie. They don't have a base, man.
They're baseless.
Yeah.
The reason that I knew that they had lost is because Jango Fett told me so at the end of the campaign for Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2003. He was like, we cried and we showed up the sky. We had drank so much. I don't remember what he says. But he talks about celebrating on Hoth after losing so many brothers to the rebellion. And so it's very interesting. It's a win for the Empire. And I don't know. Empire is... such a great movie. It's got everything. It's got love, but not too much. Not the weird sand kind. It's got action. It's got comedy. It's got the
droids. I know that's A New Hope. Get out of here.
It's also funny that in back-to-back movies, there's just this creepy old person that ends up being like so important. And it just gets worse. Like, the first movie, it's like, oh, this poor guy's been in the desert for so long, he doesn't even know what's going on. And then the next movie, it's like, it's freaking Kermit the Frog out there with giant ears. Yeah. You seek Yoda. Yoda was so freaking... I mean, he's still very cool. Yeah. But when I first saw him, I was like, oh my God, look at that guy.
It's because it's what everybody aspires to be. That you're so needed. You can be as crazy as you want, and they still come begging to you
Maurice.
For help.
Crazy old Maurice. Remember how creepy that the walking insane asylum carriage thing was from Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, yeah.
And also, why is that thing animated?
Why is what thing animated?
The crazy, Remember when they're taking Maurice and they're trying to put him in the insane asylum and the carriage itself can walk? Is that correct? Am I mixing up things?
You're mixing up part of the story.
We are in trouble. That makes sense. The carriage that walks is from the castle. Now that makes sense. I digress then.
I retract my statement. The other day, I was on Warzone.
I'm still right.
And the chopper just randomly blew up, but I knew what had happened, and my friend had put C4 on the chopper, and everybody's like, oh my god, what happened? They thought we were getting shot at, and I said, Jesse? And there was about 3 seconds of silence, and Jesse goes, I would like to apologize.
That's funny. But, dude, Empire was so crazy because, man, from the beginning, it's just impeccable work with tiny toys.
It's metal.
You think about it. It's metal. It's funny because as someone who, one of my hobbies is toy photography, it's a pain in the butt to get a shot that looks like it's not a toy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, especially with the AT-ATs, because know it's all scale models, you know, and it's moving, and I thought it was funny because there was one leg that was like really flexible in the back. Mm-hmm. But, they made it fall without making it look small. It fell like it looked big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you think about it, and it's like okay, so when you're talking about Star Wars action figures or collectibles or whatever, you have the original scale, which is just shorter than 4 inches. And then you have the bigger scale, which is 6 inches. And then you have sideshow collectibles or hot toys, which are 1/6 scale.
Yeah.
And those are like $250, $350, $400 for depending on how big the character is or how many accessories they get or whatever. They resale for ridiculous amounts of money. I don't understand how people collect those. They're like, yeah, I got to get these 3 hot toys, $1,000. But it's interesting because as a photographer, I do enjoy taking pictures of the bigger stuff that is easier to photograph because on a toy that is 18 inches tall, it's way easier for that to look realistic than it is a toy that's 3.5 inches tall. So imagine these freaking AT-ATs they're 2 feet tall. Or when you look at there's the moment where Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer is coming into play, and I was looking at that as an artist or as a photographer, and I was like, dude, the way that they move the light, where it's like the regular Star Destroyers are in the light, and you're like, there it is, it's the most menacing ship they've got, and then the Super Star Destroyer comes into play, and the light gradually is covered up.
Yeah,
it's just so smooth, and it's just
it's cool.
It's art. It's pure art.
Something that it's there are a lot of things about Star Wars that aren't necessarily like up to standards with actual science, right? So for instance, one of those is that Boba Fett figures out where Han's going, and the Empire was still able to beat Han to Bespin, even though he got a big head start on him. If you read the books, you realize because there's different class hyperdrives that help you get somewhere faster.
Right. Which obviously the Empire has way better stuff.
Right. And so, but in real life, the fastest you could do is near light speed travel, and there's no way to overtake that.
Right. Hey, you want to know how much Vader's Super Star Destroyer cost?
In real life?
Well, no. Like, if it was to create within Star Wars. Have you seen that video? It's like a TikTok or something where they're throwing that
golf ball.
They're throwing that Star Destroyer over the banister at that 2-story house. Oh. I just want to kill those people.
It's like when I'm watching a movie and a Lambo gets wrecked. I'm like,
no, yeah, because there's a real Lambo somewhere that got wrecked for that. All right, so it's called the Executor. All right, is called a Star Dreadnought. So it's not just a destroyer; it's a Star Dreadnought. It's 19,000 meters long.
Wow.
So I don't even know what that means. I know that's
That'd
miles.
Be 19 kilometers. That is a big piece of metal.
So 19 kilometers is how many miles?
5 kilometers is about 3 miles. So we're looking at like
10 miles maybe.
Well, it would be.
You said how many kilometers? Or how many meters?
I guess 10 or 11.
It's 1,900 meters, so it's 19 kilometers.
It's 1.18 mile.
Wow.
It's over a mile long.
Wait, 19,000 kilometers you said, right?
You said 1,900 or 19,000?
19,000 meters.
Dang, I freaking nailed it. I said like 11 miles.
It's 11.8.
12 miles long.
Yeah.
Good God. No wonder it casts a shadow. Okay.
Back to what I was saying, though. I don't want to forget what I was saying.
All right.
I didn't finish.
I got the cost right here.
But anyway, so like some things aren't scientifically accurate. But when you're in space, a lot of people just think about space as kind of dark.
Right.
But I was watching that guy who does like different experiments. You see him on the space station every once in a while. He said that it's like super bright in space because there's nothing to absorb starlight. So you're just exposed to raw starlight. So if you see an astronaut's helmet, it's actually the entire thing's coated with, like that reflective visor.
Yeah, Ray-Bans.
Yeah, basically. Space bands.
Nice.
But yeah, so like it's cool that they would have that element of it, whether or not you would be able to actually cast a shadow like that because you got light coming from all directions. But still, it's cool that there are shadows in space in Star Wars.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept. I do believe that one of the reasons... Well, how would that work? I think one of the reasons is, aren't they just above the Hoth system?
Yeah, but then you would think about the shadows would all be relative to the solar system's main celestial body.
Right. So the cost for Vader's Super Star
Destroyer... So this
Destroyer,
is how much they, in Star Wars it would cost?
Yeah, this is how much it would cost, I get it's in credits.
Okay.
I don't even know if I can. Okay, so you have 100,000 million, so 325 billion credits, just for that ship.
No, they won't.
Right, because that's 100. All right, look. So that's 100,000. That's a million. So that's a billion.
325 billion.
325 billion credits.
That's like the whole deficit.
Donald's like, what do you think? It's fantastic. Tell you what, China is never going to send a virus over here ever again because I've got a $325 billion spaceship. You guys are laughing at the Space Force? Who's laughing now? Nobody, especially not China. Kim Jong-un. But yeah, dude, it's just cool because everything Star Wars did, Empire was like, oh, that's peanuts. I don't know, obviously the Death Star is greater than a Super Star Destroyer just by sheer size, although in Thrawn's opinion it's not as good. But just having the size of that ship, and then it's not just a regular tank,
I don't think Thrawn would have been counter Superman with Star Destroyer.
Huh?
I don't think Thrawn would have been against the creation of a Superman with Star Destroyer.
No, I'm saying he would prefer the Super Star Destroyer to the Death Star.
Yeah, for sure.
Which he said.
Right.
But I think about things like, you have the Sandcrawler in Episode 4. We're going to up that and have a giant elephant, an AT-AT, AT-AT, Walker. It's just so cool, and to have the hologram of Vader where it's all that kind of stuff.
And what's cool is they didn't even do it halfway. You've got this big, interesting machine. You got the AT-AT, and even though we're focused on the AT-AT, we still got the AT-ST in the background.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's still stuff going on. I thought it was cool how intensive the directing was, even with just the extras. So in that scene where Vader's force choking that guy during the hologram, or during their telecommunications, and the other senior officers trying to ignore what's going on, the guy in the background is just
staring at him.
He's involved in it. You know what I mean? I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. You really start to see Darth Vader come into his own in this movie, because actually, even though he's the main villain of A New Hope, you see him kind of play a backseat to Tarkin for a lot. And in retrospect, obviously 2020 vision, LOL. You realize that he's obedient to Tarkin on the Death Star because Tarkin is basically the captain of that ship. It is technically a ship. Giant space station / ship of some sort. Yeah. It's a space station that has ship capabilities. And how the freak does that thing fly?
I don't know.
Where's the engine?
I've thought about it a lot.
And it's crazy that when you're looking at the Death Star, there's that giant belt, and that's not what they're flying along. Luke, when he's flying for that port, he's actually flying along a tinier trench.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's going from south to north.
How much do they estimate the Death Star would have cost?
You keep talking, I'll look it up.
Holy Moses. So there are some things that are in Star Wars that were kind of like adaptations to what was going on in real life. Adam asked us, were the Wampas originally part of the Star Wars story, the Empire story? And the answer is no. So I don't know if you know this, but Mark Hamill, his facial injuries are real life, and they introduced the Wampa scene because he was like really badly injured in a car crash, and that's how the Wampas made it into the story.
They say that the Death Star, as of 2016, this was like in real-time American dollars, the Death Star would cost $7.7 octillion per day to operate. Per day. What would Imperial credits even be worth anything? I guess technically it would just, it's an empire, so it's just like this is going to be built. You know what I mean? Doesn't really need to function along. People don't have to get paid for it. It's just happening. That's why you use the Geonosians. If you haven't read the book Catalyst, you'll know what I'm talking about. They basically used the Geonosians to build most of the mainframe and then destroyed them all. Killed them all. Not just the men Geonosians either, but the women and the children Geonosians too. But yeah, the freaking the scars from Mark Hamill's encounter as Luke Skywalker with the Wampa came, like you said, from a car crash. And whoever it is that had caused that car crash from 40-something years ago, thank you. Because the Wampa is arguably my favorite beast from Star Wars.
Yeah.
If you're the casual viewer and you don't know what a Wampa is, that is the giant bear / Yeti looking thing that attacks Luke Skywalker on Hoth.
Like, I realize it's a movie and things just have to happen a certain way, but I just can't get over the fact that Luke is on this tauntaun. He goes like, "You smell something, girl?" And then, a freaking actual Wampa, they're 6.5 feet tall, just sneaks up on him.
Yeah, but think about it. I bet you they're fast as freak.
Yeah, but what about his spidey senses, bro?
Oh, with the Force, you mean?
Yeah, man. He's just not on his A game that day.
Yeah, the Force is strange in that way.
I also don't get why he didn't just finish the Wampa the rest of the way and stay in that ice cave. Like, that shelter he had to know the sun was coming down. You know what I mean? Like, anyway. I digress.
Fight or flight? We know for sure that if it was Kylo Ren, he would have sliced and diced that Wampa into the. You know when you're eating queso, and they have those little bitty squares of tomatoes. That's what would have been left of that Wampa. You don't do that to me. That's my Adam Driver voice. But yeah, you have the Wampa, which is a really cool character. There's some really cool Legends material and comics and things that has. There was a female Sith Lord that basically ruled on Hoth, and she, the same way that Ezra and stuff can control animals, she basically had an army of like snow creatures, Wampas namely. So that's pretty dope. And then it's really interesting because when you are watching the movie and Luke is missing, they're talking about, well, the speeders have not been adapted yet for the cold.
Yeah.
But on every marketing thing ever, like even recently, they released a new one for the 40th anniversary toy line, and it's a snow speeder. And that's always boggled the mind that they're adapted for the snow, so they're clearly not even made for the snow. They're probably made for like regular weather. I bet you they were flying those things like to do stuff on Yavin.
What's hard for me to imagine though is that you would be a creator. Like, here's the thing.
Okay.
You're creating space grade
stuff.
You're not producing a speeder for like one specific environment. You gotta like imagine that you're creating for an entire galaxy worth of environments.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that also part of that is because the rebellion is short on cash. So I think that they don't have...
Not even for them. I'm just talking about whoever's making these things. You know
right, that's what I'm saying is they probably don't have... They're probably... One, the cold on Hoth is not like, yeah, we're going to be in North Dakota. Like, it's...
Well, here's the other thing.
There's nothing there. So there's nothing there because it's not a sustainable ecosystem.
But they're still making, like... This is the space age, you know what I mean? Like, literally everybody's an astronaut. Space is way colder than Hoth.
Yeah. But I don't think they're supposed to be I think I understand what you're saying, but I think that they are made for within a certain type of atmosphere.
That's stupid.
They don't have hyperdrive capability. I don't think.
Echo base. Running low on oxygen. The only person on this entire planet that's got mustache sweat, but I'm gonna try and push through.
Rogue 2.
Rogue 2.
Rogue 2.
Yeah, Rogue 2 came before Rogue 1.
There you go.
Star Wars. We started with Episode 4. We started with Rogue 2.
Rogue 2, I'm thinking Arby's.
Dude, they
have the meats.
One of my all-time favorite Star Wars memes is one I saw in high school, so that was a long time ago.
Porkins?
Yeah, that Porkins meme where he's communicating with Luke and he's like, Luke, I saw Sbarro back at the airport. Are we going to stop and get some pizza? Luke? Like, he didn't get a reply. He was
Luke.
panicked. Oh, that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That's really funny. So, they're leaving Hoth, and, I mean, you gotta skip a lot, but whatever. I just think the AT-ATs were so cool. I still have the 1995, whatever year it was, AT-AT that Dad bought me for Christmas.
I like that. I like the
buttons still work.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at you.
Well, the buttons still work. I gotta replace the batteries, though.
Gotcha.
But if the batteries are fresh, they work.
I like something that Adam pointed out. It was so funny that the whole rebellion is fighting, essentially, and Han and Chewie are still working on the Falcon.
Yeah. It's just,
like,
that's such a picture of
this
Han and Chewie.
This one goes there and that goes there, right?
Yeah, I love that. It's I get that it is important that the Falcon works because you can probably get a ton of people out on there. I mean, heck, they saved the whole resistance on Crate.
He's not going to leave it. You know what I mean? It's
right.
His ship. He had already planned on leaving the rebellion at this point. He'd already talked to the general. He'd already talked to Princess Leia, kind of, if you can call that communicating. But you know, it's just like he's got to get it out of there. It's now or never. It's going to get destroyed.
Yeah, and I also, when we were watching a little bit this morning, I was thinking about whenever he's you know saying he says something, and that's when Leia calls him the half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder, and he says, "Who's scruffy-looking?" And then
that was his takeaway.
He talks to Luke, and he's like, "Man, I really must have hit close to the mark to get all riled up like that, huh, kid?" And then Leia says, I guess you don't know very much about women, and plants that disgusting, sloppy, wet kiss on...
Sweet home Alabama.
Puts that... Jeez. Puts that kiss on Luke. And the funny thing is, I was like, hey, guys. He just talked about how his appearance isn't good enough for her, and she said, I guess you don't know anything. And then kissed the guy that has a massive scar across his face from being attacked by a snow bear.
So when's the last time you were really smug and you're just like... Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
what face is he making?
The weird
right there,
puckered
bro?
butthole face that he's doing. Holding in his diarrhea.
He's trying
in the
to
mouth.
whistle and he doesn't know how.
Yeah, that was a weird face. But Mark Hamill's kind of an awkward guy.
Do you ever see those sexy photos that he
with the
those
gold
glamour
outfit?
shots? Yeah.
Yes. Let's
Dude,
not talk about that.
Those are so...
But Robert De Niro has a weird face like that. Like every face is like this. Every face, he's got the.
That's just kind of his face, though.
The jowls. Yeah, but like when he's angry, he's like.
But Mark Hamill's got regular faces too. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
That would be his go-to when he's smug.
That is really funny. Oh man, I'm just waiting for Chewbacca. I know the movie's never going to change, but I'm just waiting for Chewbacca to just smack someone in the face when they talk crap to him. Like, I don't know. It's so. The stuff that they all say to him is so rude. It's not like, hey, you idiot, like they can call anyone. It's like specifically Wookiee things, like fuzzball or walking carpet.
Laugh
like,
up, fuzzball.
All right, Leia, you racist. Smack. Dude, what if he just went ham one day and just
I think one of my favorite things about Chewbacca and
he did almost kill Lando
is the mask that they have for him in that film. His eyes look so alien, and they're making their escape from Hoth, and he's like freaking a gremlin. I don't know. It's just like in
what do you
the
mean?
X-Men comics when Mojo captures somebody and their eyes are like held open with claws. It's just like his eyes look so alien because they're like human eyes. They're not quite to scale with the rest of his face.
Yeah. Man, it's just
different
crazy.
from in like I think it's Solo. He's got black eyes. You know what I mean? His whole eyes are black. They change between films. It was either Solo or it was The Force Awakens. They did something different with his eyes.
Well, in Solo, it's a different actor, so the eye color could be different.
Right. Well, I'm just saying it's like completely different eyes. Like instead of having human eyes like the cornea and the iris, it's all black.
Are you sure?
Positive. I remember I paid attention to it specifically.
Now I gotta look this up. I've always just seen the eye black, you know?
No, because he had like human eyes.
Yeah.
Like in
I know, but all I'm saying is when he has the mask on, he always has the black around his eye, and then like you said, the inside of the eye is always the same. I've always thought it was the same in every movie. And it might look different because you have that Eunice guy that's doing it now. But they get off of Hoth, and basically, because...
Here, look.
Oh man, this is a struggle.
Force Awakens, all the black eyes.
That's weird.
It's a weird thing to change that much, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but look at him from Revenge of the Sith right there. No, bottom left. Middle.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah, see? It's completely different.
That is strange. I don't get it. Huh. You know what's crazy, though, is the picture that you saw from there is also from the trailer. I wonder if they changed it for the movie.
No, because I remember noticing it in the movie.
Yeah, he does look more Wookiee, less human in that movie. But where does the rebellion end up going? Once they leave Hoth, because I know
they're
Han
just
and all of them... Oh, that makes sense.
They're just a fleet.
Han and Leia and those guys are being chased by the Empire.
Because you see them meet up at the end of Empire, right? And there's just it's just a bunch of ships. They don't have a base.
You want to talk about how easy it is to just go and come from the rebellion?
Right.
Like, Han was like, hey, I got to get out of here. I got a price on my head. And the guy's like, well, hate to see you go.
Major Bomber Solo, good luck.
Yeah. And then you have the opposite, the at the end of the movie where they're like, hey, I know that we're like really on the edge of getting completely annihilated by the Empire, but I've got to take a year off to go to Tatooine to really plant myself in Jabba's palace. How long was Lando living there? A good while, huh?
Too long.
Ugh. Dude.
But you got to think about the turnover rate at Jabba's palace. You know, I'm sure it's high. It's very high.
Dude, I bet you can get an STD in Jabba's palace in like a matter of minutes.
Just by breathing.
Just by breathing it in, yeah.
Ugh.
Nobody's wearing a mask. Dude, it's so funny. But anyways, so that's as far as we got watching the movie today. But they're leaving Hoth, and then I do like to hear... hey, you know what I've always wondered? I've always wondered when
How
R2's...
that space worm lives in the vacuum of space?
No.
I've always wondered that.
Oh. I've always wondered how it works where when Luke is in the X-Wing, and if he can understand R2, right, why is there a script coming up on his screen?
Because he's outside the ship. He's outside the cockpit.
But what are the... I don't know. Does it just type in English? Or basic?
Yeah.
Or does it just... Why wouldn't it just come in audio?
I don't know, man.
You know what I mean? I've always wondered about that, though.
It was made in 1980.
He hasn't upgraded his ship yet.
That's what it is. Old ship. But he's going towards Dagobah, and R2's like, are you sure about this? You know, you sure you want to change your mind? And he's like,
nope, not going to change my mind.
Not going to change my mind.
Still trying to get those power motivators.
Power converters.
Power converters.
And then we get to...
He's trying to go to Tashi Station. He's like, gotta reroute, gotta go to Tashi Station, pick up those power converters. And R2's like, no, you can do that next season.
We're split up between Dagobah and the asteroid field, which is one of your favorite parts of Vader looking for the Falcon.
Yeah, I don't know. You quoted it a couple weeks ago, but it's always been funny to me how disconcerted with everything else Vader is. The asteroids do not concern me, Admiral.
They don't concern me, Admiral.
He doesn't care. I thought it was cool. Something that was introduced was what's under the mask for Vader. That's something that changed about Empire. We see that he's like super damaged. It's not just a suit. Or we have the concept.
Yeah, because we didn't really even know if he was completely. I mean,
right,
Obi-Wan says he's more machine than man, but it's kind of like I'm sure the way that we see Grievous is kind of how people saw him back in the day.
Right. We didn't know. And then they have the introduction of his meditation sphere. Like, how does that work?
That male pattern baldness is just terrible.
That male pattern scarring. all over the back of his head.
Yeah, he's burnt to a crisp. It's interesting because he would have the scars that he would have had would have been much different than what we end up seeing. You know,
Yeah, it's just a
more along the lines
family
of
tradition.
more along the lines of Deadpool, I guess. Hey, so one of the other
Emperor.
some of the stories that are coming in. Some of the stories that are coming in from a certain point of view is an author by the name of Mark Oshiro recounts the Wampa's tragic tale of loss and survival. I am 100% in.
That's pretty cool.
This says, Martha Wells reveals the world of Ugnaught clans who dwell in the depths of Cloud City.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Bring in Kuil.
That is cool that
Preach.
some of the things that we owe Empire, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
The introduction of Ugnaughts, the introduction of IG units. That both of those things happened in Empire, and they were both big characters.
Bosk.
Within...
Boba Fett, you got to think at the time, Boba Fett was brought in during Empire.
Right.
The whole scene where he's walking
reintroduced
in, that
Hope.
doesn't count.
Right.
To quote Obi-Wan.
But those are all things that like Mandalorian wouldn't have happened without those introductions. You
Right.
don't really see IG units in Jedi, I don't think.
At
least not prominently.
I think there may be one in Jabba's palace or something.
And you don't see any Ugnaughts.
I mean, yeah, characters, think about this.
Jedi.
Characters introduced in Empire Strikes Back. Ready?
Right.
Lando Calrissian, Emperor Palpatine. You don't see the Emperor until then.
Right.
You don't know about IG-88,
The back of Vader's head.
the back of Vader's head, Bosk, Boba Fett, Ugnaughts, Zuckuss, Forlom, what's his face? Back of the helmet kind of guy. Frickin', you know what I'm talking about. Homeboy, white guy that reboots like an iPhone every 10 minutes. Lobot. God. Remember when Lando like taps on his Apple Watch and the guy's like, "Nyang." he's awake? I do feel tragic. That's a tragic story, actually. It's the story of Lobot. I'm still waiting to do a whole episode about Lobot. But,
If you can remember his name, we can do an episode about him.
there you go. Yoda.
Yeah, Yoda. We got... we see Ben Kenobi for the first time as a Force ghost. That concept's introduced in Empire.
Yeah, you hear his voice in New Hope, but you don't see him.
In incorporeal form. You've got the
I know it's not
Tauntauns. You got
Tauntauns,
the Wampas.
Wampas. Yeah.
Salt.
Dagobah. Dagoba's a big deal. Salt.
It's salt.
The Dark Side Cave.
Looks are droids.
The real struggle that revolves around everything else in Star Wars. Think about this. The Dark Side Cave that is everything you fear to lose.
Yeah.
You need to let go.
I kind of wanted to talk about that too because...
The concept of... That kind of revolves around the sequel and prequel trilogies of the struggle within is introduced in the Dark Side Cave in Empire Strikes Back.
That we kind of have like a more intensive glimpse into how your actions really shape your future, especially within the Force, where Yoda says that, you know, your weapons, you won't need them, and Luke takes them anyway. You know, his choice to be combative from the start kind of shapes how his experience goes in the Dark Side Cave. Which is kind of like foreshadowing for what happens in Jedi that he overcomes by not doing that.
Right.
But those are all very subtle sub-themes. We have the same idea that when Luke goes into exile, he finds a place that's mostly light side, but also has a very strong dark side nexus. Just a lot of interesting things that we owe to Empire.
It says a lot about Yoda's character that what I've always read, and I've never heard it disputed by any new canon material, is that the reason that Yoda goes to Dagobah is because there is the dark side nexus that is so strong that it counterbalances his presence in the Force, which makes it invisible, basically.
There is that cool story in From a Certain Point of View celebrating Star Wars, where those probes that go to Hoth also find their way to Dagobah, and Yoda has to destroy them without using any weapons or anything, so that he doesn't really give away why they were destroyed and keep his location secret. That's pretty cool.
Right. Very cool stuff. You find out about... It's crazy because it's really the first time that we go planet hopping in Star Wars. Because in A New Hope, you're on Tatooine, and then you're in space most of the time, and then you're in Yavin a tiny bit, but really the Death Star in space is where most of it takes place, besides Tatooine. But then in Empire, it's like Hoth, Dagobah, Cloud City, you know, Star Destroyer, other stuff going on. Asteroid. Yeah, it's just a crazy thing. Yeah, you have that freaking... Without Empire, we never had the giant space worm.
Yeah.
Mag. Remember that?
Yeah.
With the beanie? And what else? There's so much stuff, dude. Freaking Minox.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Minox are crazy. Space. The little mask they have to wear.
Which still would be insufficient. I'd like to state that now, but...
Yeah, how... Well, I guess
their bodies would disintegrate. They would...
But they're inside of a sealed... Whatever, with the worm.
Yes and no. I mean, there's still no atmosphere, so there's not technically air pressure that would keep their body together.
Unless the worm can...
Their blood would start to boil. It's different.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. I'm talking Star Wars science. Maybe the worm itself has some type of environment within its own...
Yeah, but they don't know they're inside a worm.
Innards.
You know what I mean? They think they're still walking out into what's basically space.
That's true. Dang it! It just sucks. I'm trying to find the list of all the stories.
Oh, for the new one, for the new point of view for Empire.
I cannot wait for the Jackson story.
Another
nice shot,
concept
Jackson.
that's introduced is, or another thing that's introduced is carbonite. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can live in stasis in that way, or it's like a way of imprisoning people.
Right.
That's introduced in Empire. You see new Force stuff. Like, you don't really see anybody move anything with the Force for the most part. So Luke pulls with the Force on that lightsaber, and he's just struggling to get the lightsaber. And then you see Vader tossing basically all of Cloud City at Luke during that fight. Or you see Yoda lifting the
I do like that Vader...
X-Wing.
Okay, so Vader, when he's talking to Admiral Piet and he's killing Admiral Ozzel, he doesn't do anything, and he's like... And I like the showiness of on Cloud City. He's like, he's just doing a little fly fishing with his lightsaber, throwing stuff at him. Man, it really shows how strong Vader is in the Force.
Yeah, especially in comparison to what we'd seen from any light side user, at the time. Without really having any. I mean, there was basically Star Wars, and then there was Empire, and there was no other Star Wars content to really fill anybody in about the concepts that are introduced.
But yeah, imagine it being 1980 and you just walked out of Empire Strikes Back and Boba Fett has, that you know of, killed Han Solo. He's stable, but we don't know what the crap's going to happen to him.
Well, and what a cool introduction for that character, that he would just be that crafty guy that, is like basically the first person in Star Wars we see to actually outsmart Han Solo.
Yeah. Yeah, luck didn't matter because he's so much smarter. And Boba Fett was really one of the selling points. I've always heard that Bosk and Boba Fett were like two characters that they're like, you have to come see these guys in theaters 1980. And I'm pretty sure that Bosk's outfit was from a Star Trek episode. And they just put those lizard limbs on it, if I'm not mistaken.
It's pretty like standard flight suit looking kind of outfit.
Pretty standard Star Wars.
Yeah.
You're going to use this? Okay, I'm going to use it better. Make no mistake, Star Wars is far and away greater than Star Trek.
Well, and let's talk about, like, basically the biggest takeaway for anybody that would have been seeing Empire. Would have been the reveal of Luke is Vader's son.
Right. Well, Vader, revealing Vader as Anakin.
Yeah. Because
you're like, yeah, he died. He died in the Clone Wars. Sucks. And, man, I would have been pissed at Obi-Wan. It's also weird that Luke continues to call him Ben.
That's how we knew him, though. Old Ben.
That's true.
That crazy wizard.
He had known him for a while.
Yeah. I mean, he'd basically known him growing up. They were basically acquaintances, like our neighbor Carrie, who collected squirrels.
Remember how mad Mom was whenever we tried to catch a squirrel, and she was like, they have rabies. You could get AIDS from squirrel bites. Oh, my God, that's so funny. There's just one about the planet of Hoth. I think it's about Tauntauns. I was interested if there's one that is about... this is just a dadgum. It's about R2. Some of these I don't care for in a certain point of view, are like little comic strips. Like there's at least one in here that's just a little comic.
Calvin and Hobbes?
Yeah, I'm not paying for that. I want an actual story. But it is what it is, I guess. It is what it is. Wedge Antilles. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm trying to find out. There's one called Disturbance, which is about Darth Sidious. An Exogorth is the name of the space worm. Which I would have known that eventually. Ray Sloan. She's a cool character that was that's been introduced in the new Star Wars canon. I want to say in the book Lost Stars is her first appearance, which is one of the best books in new Star Wars canon. And she rises to the rank of Grand Admiral. And so she's in this book.
Interesting.
Bosk has a story. Forlom and Zuckuss have a story. Boba Fett has a story, of course. I think he has 2 stories. One specifically about Slave One. Obi-Wan gets another one.
Nice. I like how Obi-Wan's completely unconcerned with Luke's well-being.
Jackson and Lobot get one. Say it again?
Luke's literally freezing to death, and Ben's just out there like, gotta go to Dagobah. All right, peace out.
You'll be fine.
Completely unconcerned.
Yeah. Dengar and IG-88 have one. Ugnaughts have one. I really would love... L337 has one as the brain of the Millennium Falcon. Hey, Wilro
Hands
Hood.
down, worst droid in all of Star Wars.
I'd
I'd rather have an entire story about a Gonk droid. Wonk.
Oh, Gonks are cool.
Gonk.
Wilro Hood is cool. I think L337 has a cool idea, but some of their execution wasn't my fave. And then the final story, of course, is about the Wills.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
But, dude, talk about Cloud City.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things, a city in the clouds, literally.
It's a pretty cool thing to introduce. That it's Star Wars, and then, why not a floating city?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you don't realize this, but Cloud City is the name of it's really just a floating station.
Right.
They're above... So, Cloud City is the station that is floating above Bespin, and Bespin is a gas giant.
Right. Like
and
Jupiter.
Somehow, Lando Calrissian talked his way into being the controller of the entire city. So, he's making buku bucks. Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to play a little Go Fish. Might be in charge of Exxon by the end of the day. No big deal.
Yep.
That's
and
Lando.
Vader came along and ruined it.
Altered the deal.
Pretty classic Vader, TBH.
Yeah.
Sure, you've got a good thing going on.
So let me ask you this.
No more.
So back in the day, Empire was like, they saw it as a it made great money, but they saw it as a bust. It wasn't a good continuation of the story from Star Wars or whatever. 40 years later, if you put it to a vote, I would say that over 50% of people say that's their favorite movie, if not higher. And then when Return of the Jedi came out, it really showed the greatness of Empire. And like I said, all these years later, it's so high on the list. Do you think that there's ever a chance that a movie like The Last Jedi
You're going to take that place?
goes...
It's going to be more appreciated
No,
in
not
40
more
years?
appreciated. Well, yes.
No, I'm saying more appreciated now in 40 years than it is now.
Right. Because I was thinking about this the other day. I saw a poll on Instagram on a very, very big Star Wars profile, has over 100,000 followers, so it's lots of votes coming in, right? Mm-hmm. And they did a poll of, it was the one I sent you, who's more strong in the Force, Obi-Wan or Luke, and things like that. And one of it was, do you prefer the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy? 10 years ago, if you asked that, 70% of people, if not more, would be like, the prequels suck. Obviously, the originals are better, right? But the prequels won by a margin of like 53 to 47. Like, it was not much at all. And I think that in 5 or 10 more years, I bet you the prequels will overtake the original trilogy as the most loved. Just because of those people who grew up with the prequels will be the louder voice. Does that make sense? Yeah. Same reason in 5 or 10 years that LeBron James, I think, will be seen as the best, just because kids who grew up watching him, if you ask someone from the 70s, who's better, Bill Russell or Michael Jordan, they're going to be like, Bill Russell used to block the ball, jump up, rebound it, come down, dribble the length of the court, and dunk on everybody. He has 11 championships in 13 seasons, and he coached 2 of them. Like, they're going to throw all these stats out, and then people who, right now, the people who are the commentators, who are the talking heads on ESPN and whatnot, they grew up, or the early adulthood was formed around Michael Jordan. And so in that same way, I wonder if in 10, 15, 20 years, will The Last Jedi be seen differently and loved more than what we got? The main gripe for me was the whole Snoke thing, right?
I think that
and the way that is described and how they handle that from now on will change things.
The sequel trilogy starts to be seen more as a singular unit than as individual movies, that 7 and 9 will probably rise in respect. And I think that where the film critics kind of gave The Last Jedi a lot of clout because they liked it as a movie, is going to be seen something as like a failure as far as the continuation of the series. You know what I mean? Because it's such a standalone. The story in The Last Jedi is so counterproductive to what was happening in 7 and 9.
I don't know if I would say counterproductive. I think that there are a lot of loose ends that were left loose.
Well, and what I mean is that it changed a lot of the momentum that we had in 7, and
Sure.
a lot of 9 was spent cleaning that mess up. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, it dramatically shifted the momentum that they had for the trilogy that could have been... You imagine what 9 could have been if it wasn't 75% cleanup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for instance, J.J. Abrams said that he would love to help produce a spin-off series on Disney Plus just about the Knights of Ren. And he said there's a fantastic story there.
Right.
And I'm sure part of that was unpack it in 8 and 9. Maybe not the story of the Knights of Ren, but just seeing them.
Right. Well, and it could have been what
Imagine
George
if Vader
wanted it to be.
Imagine
as
if
far
Vader
as-
was in 4 and then wasn't in 5 at all.
Right.
And then in 6 he got killed by the Emperor like that. That's kind of what happened with the Knights of Ren.
Well, and like George wanted it to be more of an exploration of what the Force was. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been that. You know, we kind of got lost on it because
Yeah, you know,
somebody
honestly,
wanted to make a good movie but not a good series. You know what I mean?
could I sit down and talk to George Lucas for countless hours about the midi-chlorians and are there midi-chlorians within midi-chlorians and the biology of the Force and the chemistry and all this? Absolutely, absolutely. I could talk to George about that. But would that make a successful movie release for the average human being?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think that him exploring, you know what I'm saying?
No, I was going to Ancient Aliens where they would have like, is it possible
A
that
preposterous
dogs are
idea.
actually robots? And if so, where did those robots come from?
Right.
Ancient astronaut theorists would suggest yes. It wasn't even like a yes or no question.
Right.
It's so outlandish.
I think that I just think about, you know, something like, okay, I know that both of y'all don't really care for Jar Jar, but there is a ton of Jar Jar love on the internet. And from, you know, it's funny because when Hasbro, remember that day that I was like, they announced a Jar Jar Black series finally, right? Because I've been jokingly but seriously talking about that since the podcast started. When that was announced, that one sold out almost as fast as the Boba Fett deluxe figure. And you could still go find the Armor deluxe figure from The Mandalorian, which is the new hot thing. But the Jar Jar deluxe had been sold out like almost instantly as soon as it was announced, right? And so it makes me wonder, not that Rose will become a loved character, but I'm saying just the concept of episode 1 sucks because Jar Jar's annoying. I wonder if in 20 years, if The Force or The Last Jedi will be seen in a different light from people who have grown up, maybe young people who grew up with this Star Wars or whatever. The only thing that I can see keeping it from being beloved is the toxicity of social media. That's the one thing I can see. Because there's people out there that it's
Internet's
like...
just a trend.
Al Gore doesn't know what he's doing. You see people all the time that it's... I'll see people all the time that they're like, here's my ranking of the Star Wars movies, and they don't include 7, 8, and 9 or Solo. They'll include 1 through 6 and Rogue One. And to me, that's like, you're not a legitimate fan. If Star Wars, if I don't like this Star Wars, then it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? I get, you can say you don't like it. I'm not saying you have to like it, but I don't understand the bashing of Star Wars post sale to Disney. So that makes me wonder, obviously, we have a very toxic, tense relationship with social media right now. But I do wonder if in the future, if things lighten up and if the country lightens up and if things get to kind of more normal where they were, you know, a few years ago, I wonder if the sequel trilogy will be as accepted. And Empire really set the trend for that. Empire was not liked when it first came out. And now, you know, my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. I know that's Adam's favorite movie of all time. And I know it's in your top 2 or 3, right?
Maybe.
10 months later, is The Rise of Skywalker the greatest Star Wars movie? Or is it Revenge of the Sith? Or is it Empire Strikes Back?
Who's to say?
I'm asking you your opinion.
I know.
He's avoiding it.
I want to keep it to myself.
Why?
Secret ballot, baby.
I promise you the 25 views we're going to get on this video won't be upset at you.
They won't be upset at me because I'm not going to say anything.
Why do you want to keep it a secret?
Secret ballot, baby.
Alright, whatever. You have all these notes. Do you have anything you want to say?
I fit them in there in between what you were saying.
Okay. Alright, well, Empire Strikes Back.
It's a great film. 40 years. It's got a great lifespan. There aren't a lot of things that happened 40 years ago that people are still excited about, that people are still talking about. You know what I mean? Like, I was telling Adam when we were watching it, I was like, just think about all the other movies that were made in the 80s. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There aren't any that have aged quite so well, in my opinion. It's still shaping entire generations, decades after it being created.
Well, I think about the first It miniseries, part 1 and part 2, mm-hmm. right? Still a cult classic, still a ton of people like it, still good, right? But if you watch it compared to like the quality or the storytelling ability of the newest, I haven't seen part 2 of the new It, but I'm just saying the quality of the video making that they can do now.
Right.
And the first one's like, you know what I mean?
When it still holds up, that's the
thing.
The
first It, homeboy, what's his name? The guy that's the hotel manager from Tim Curry. God, the guy that plays It. He's like, and it's just like, it's almost more, because movie has gotten so much more scary, it's almost like slapstick in a way.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you're watching it, the other actors are trying to be scared. So when I can't remember the character's name, but one of the characters is walking through the parking lot and Pennywise is riding on a bike around him and he's like, hey, and it's just like watching in 2020, you're like, God, I would just run over and kick that freaking clown off of that bike.
Right.
But at the time it was like terrifying, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's crazy how good.
It still holds up. I think the main thing is that it wasn't George who directed it, but
Irvin Kershner directed it, but he was the writer and he was there.
But the element of it that's so foreign, but it's still so human, like when Han's trying to repair the ship, they're going through the asteroid field, mm-hmm. and the tools fall on top of him. You know what I mean? Like, it's serious, but there's still that element of realism. Mm-hmm.
You can lay a lot of the success of scenes like that at Harrison Ford's feet.
Like, it would have been so foreign, you know what I mean? It's one of the first films of its kind, mm-hmm. and it's still so relatable. I think that's what's made it so successful. Yeah.
There's a human element, but it's still brand new.
Mm-hmm.
It's still space. It's still the final frontier. It's still these other things that have never been explored, but it's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
But it has this familiarity. But it has family, and it's got all these other things. It's got a story of redemption, and I think it's crazy how quickly. Think about this: you walk into a movie, and 3/4 of the way through, you meet some random guy named Lando, and he's been a fan favorite ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he has to do the wrong thing, he's forced to do the wrong thing in the Empire Strikes Back. But I think about that, and I think about some of the things that are complained about the sequel trilogy are. There's too much going on, and a lot of people that don't like Episode 9 say it was rushed and there's too much happening. But it's so rare to have a movie that introduces a character like Lando that has Billy D. Williams, who's a movie star of his own right,
mm-hmm.
has so much charisma, he's so smooth. He's the smooth character that Han thinks he is, and he takes over the scene, but it's still back enough that you still care more about Han. It's just it's an amazing balancing act that they
mm-hmm.
do. And there's just so much star power. I mean, you have Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, Lando, Darth Vader. You got this new Boba Fett character. You have all these other, and it's very cool. It's very much the Star Wars that you can just see Bosk put his toes over the edge and growl at somebody, and you love him for life. That's like I think that's some of the things that the newer stuff. And I don't know if it's merchandise that hasn't kept up, or if it's because of video games and because of instant stuff now that toys themselves aren't as needed. So kids can just watch a movie or play a video game about something. They don't really need to go buy a toy for it. But, we don't get characters like that nowadays. Like if someone's just in passing, you don't get a character, you don't get a toy of that. You don't get a pillow or a shirt of that a lot of times nowadays. And it was just so marketable. And if you look at like what's the newest, biggest, greatest thing since Disney bought Star Wars is The Mandalorian, in a lot of people's opinion. But you have a Mandalorian whose armor is basically a reboot of the Star Wars 1313 canceled video game Boba Fett armor, right? So you basically have a Boba Fett character. You have an Ugnaught who's in Episode 5. You have an IG unit who's in Episode 5. You have a Yoda character who's in Episode 5. And you have the Imperials. Like, everything that's the best parts of
Star
Wars really the newest stuff that's coming out that we love so much is stuff that came out because of Episode 5's stuff. It's the roots, and we're seeing the fruit 40 years later. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. I really love it. I'm excited to read the short stories from a certain point of view, to talk about what's going on in the heads of.
As long as I'm spared another Clue-Horn story, I'm all the way in.
Yeah, that was rough. I do want to. It's interesting. There's a partnership between IG-88 and Dengar. I never realized they were partners before.
Well, I guess it's not IG-88. There's the kind of assassin droid that works with Dengar in the Clone Wars, some of the Clone Wars story arcs. But I mean, I guess if you're
that's a specific that's Heisinger. That's a specific style.
I said it's not IG-88. But my point is that if you're like that prominent, you're the two main guys on the scene, you're probably going to work with each other eventually.
Yeah. It's just really interesting. I do like that they know they have to team up to have a chance, that Forlom and Zuckuss know they have to team up to have a chance, and Bosk is just cocky enough to try to go at it by himself against Boba. Very cool. It's the only other character that ever talks crap to Vader. Nobody ever talks crap to Vader. You have the Emperor who's in charge, but nobody at Vader's level or below talks to Vader the way that Boba Fett talks to Vader in Empire Strikes Back. When the Emperor talks to Vader, you know that Vader's his subordinate, but when Tarkin's talking to Vader, there's a
do you think
not a friendship, but they work together there.
There's a little contention.
Do you think maybe that Vader lets Boba get away with? I mean, this wouldn't have been when Empire was making, there wouldn't have been this thing. But do you think that maybe Vader gives Boba Fett a little bit of license because it feels like hanging out with an old friend?
Because of clones?
Mm-hmm.
No, because Vader says that Anakin is dead. So in his mind, I think he tries to push that away as much as he can. I think he gives him a little bit of leeway because he's so good at what he does.
Yeah. Well, and
he gets the job done, so I'll let you... It's kind of like your star player, right? All right, well, I guess if Kobe Bryant was to ride on his own airplane, not that he would do that, but like... You know what I'm saying? Like, MJ got to do MJ things that Scottie Pippen didn't get to do.
Yeah, but in like the Lords of the Sith book, it talks about how Vader recognized one of the faces of one of the Praetorian Guards that would have been... He was a...
the Emperor's Guards.
He was a clone.
Yeah.
And he felt like some sort of camaraderie there, that there was a kinship, even though they hadn't really worked together before.
Yeah. It's interesting because you get different views of that from different authors. Because like you said, Lords of the Sith, he sees it and he's like, oh, it's kind of like a flashback to the good old days. But then in the Vader comics, Fox does something wrong and freaking Vader just destroys him in front of everybody. In the book Tarkin, I think there's a guard that there's a stormtrooper that's a commander that's like one of the last clones. And I think Vader kills him.
Yeah, I think he messes up though.
Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, it could be. Maybe. I think it's you get the job done.
Boba would have been frozen in time, basically. You know what I mean? As far as like,
he would have aged.
Right. He would have been at the age that all the clones would have been.
Right. Very interesting. But man, the gift that keeps on giving. We could go forever. We could make this the longest episode that we've done so far, but we'll spare you. We're already at 73 minutes. But if you haven't, go rewatch Empire and just bask in the glory. And if you're having a hard time falling asleep, just turn on Empire and just let the love flow through that screen toward you. So this is 40 years of Empire Strikes Back. Arguably the greatest Star Wars media of all time. And definitely introduces the greatest cast when you have returning people from A New Hope plus all the new characters, it's definitely the best introduction. Maybe Phantom Menace is in there, but an awesome experience. So we'll see you guys next week. May the Force be with you.
And remember, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you next time.